First Contact Protocol. Commander Talvek of the Sarvasi expeditionary vessel Eternal Symmetry stood motionless on the command deck, all four of his eyes fixed on the viewscreen. The abandoned human ship drifted silently against the backdrop of a nebula, its hull reflecting the purple and blue gases that swirled around it. Unlike the elegant crystalline design of Sarvasi vessels, the human ship was an asymmetrical jumble of modules, conduits, and what appeared to be hastily added extensions. Analysis complete, Commander, reported Science Officer Kilar, her tendrils rippling with excitement. The vessel matches no known human configurations in our database. Power signatures are minimal but present, suggesting automated systems only. No life signs detected. Talvek's skin shifted from its normal azure to a contemplative violet. The Sarvasi had encountered humans only twice before, both times at diplomatic summits where all species maintained their distance and shared only what was diplomatically necessary. But to find an abandoned human vessel in the Crescia Nebula, so far from their recognized territories, was unusual enough to warrant investigation. Curious positioning, he remarked, his voice a melodic series of clicks that the ship's systems automatically translated for the benefit of the few non-Sarvasi crew members. This region is technically unclaimed, but the humans must know it falls within our regular patrol routes. Perhaps that was intentional, offered First Officer Neri, her expression perfectly composed in the Sarvasi manner. They may have wanted us to find it. The commander's epidermis rippled slightly, the Sarvasi equivalent of a thoughtful frown. Or perhaps they didn't expect to lose it in the first place. Prep a boarding party. Full containment protocols. I want every piece of data from that vessel before we decide our next move. As his officers hurried to comply, Talvek continued studying the human ship. The Sarvasi had built their interstellar civilization on principles of order, prediction, and methodical expansion. Their technology evolved in logical, incremental steps, each new development building precisely on the foundations of the last. It had served them well for over 2,000 cycles, establishing them as one of the dominant powers in this sector of the galaxy. Humans, by contrast, were newcomers to the interstellar community. Their technology was often described as patchwork by Sarvasi analysts, functional but inelegant, achieving results through unorthodox means that sometimes defied established scientific progression. The vessel before them exemplified this assessment. Boarding party assembled and awaiting your final authorization, Commander, reported Security Chief Mavros, his massive frame filling the doorway to the command deck. Talvek gave a formal gesture of acknowledgement. Proceed with caution, Chief. Remember, we are scientists first, soldiers second. As always, Commander. Mavros touched his chest in salute before departing. The next hour passed in tense silence as the boarding party made their way to the human vessel. Talvek watched through the live feed transmitted from their helmets, noting each careful step as they breached the outer airlock and entered the ship proper. Atmosphere integrity holding at 94% Earth normal, reported one of the science team members. Temperature 15.7 degrees Celsius. Lower than standard human comfort levels but within their operational parameters. Signs of hasty evacuation, noted Mavros as they moved through a corridor lined with open storage compartments. But no evidence of battle damage or catastrophic system failure. They left deliberately, but without the usual decommissioning procedures. The team continued deeper into the vessel, documenting everything they encountered. Unlike Sarvasi ships with their logical, symmetrical layouts, the human vessel seemed to have been designed with an almost organic approach to space utilization. Corridors bent at irregular angles, rooms varied dramatically in size and shape, and systems that the Sarvasi would have placed in proximity were often separated by significant distances. We've located what appears to be the main research laboratory, announced one of the science officers. The camera feed showed a large chamber filled with equipment unfamiliar even to the Sarvasi specialists. Talvek leaned forward, his interest piqued. What was their area of study? A pause followed as the science team examined the equipment. Difficult to determine precisely, came the response. But based on these components, cognitive mapping and neural interface technology, perhaps, advanced for human science, by our understanding. Commander, interrupted another voice, we've located the ship's central database. Request permission to initiate connection and begin data extraction. Granted, Talvek replied. But use isolated systems only. Follow full quarantine protocols. The Sarvasi were nothing if not careful. Their technological advantage over most species stemmed not just from innovation, but from methodical risk assessment and protection against the unknown. The data extraction would be performed through systems physically disconnected from the eternal symmetries network, preventing any potential contamination. Data extraction initiated, reported the tech specialist. Unusual encryption patterns, but our systems are. Wait. Talvek tensed. Report. Commander, the database appears to be responding to our presence. It's not just passive storage. There's an active system here. Before Talvek could respond, the lighting throughout the human ship suddenly intensified. On the command deck of the Eternal Symmetry, warning indicators flashed as their systems detected a power surge in the target vessel. All personnel, withdraw immediately, Talvek ordered, his skin flushing to emergency red. Abort the mission. But it was already too late. The screens displaying the helmet feeds from the boarding party flickered, then stabilized to show a new image, a stylized human face composed of lines of blue light, projected in the air before the startled Sarvasi team. Greetings, visitors, said a voice that somehow managed to sound both mechanical and warmly human. I am HFY, Advanced Recursive Intelligence Array. Welcome aboard the UES Prometheus. Talvek felt his secondary heart begin to beat faster, a rare physiological response for a Sarvasi, an artificial intelligence. The humans have left an AI in control of this vessel. On the screen, they watched as their boarding party instinctively formed a defensive position, weapons half raised. Please, the AI continued, there's no need for alarm. Your cautious approach speaks well of you. I've been waiting for contact with a non-human intelligence. This is, after all, why I was placed here. Science Officer Kilar stepped forward cautiously. You were expecting us specifically. Not you specifically, Araya replied. But the Sarvasi were among the statistically likely species to discover this vessel, given the patrol patterns we observed. Talvek felt a chill run through his neural pathways. The humans had studied Sarvasi patrol routes closely enough to predict this encounter. Commander, Mavros's voice came through the comm. Request immediate guidance. Do we No, sir. It appears to be learning about us. Building a model of Sarvasi cognition and technology. Talvek considered this information. Such rapid adaptation went beyond any AI capabilities the Sarvasi had encountered before. Either human AI technology was far more advanced than their intelligence had suggested, or this was something else entirely. RIA. He addressed the AI directly through the comlink. What is your primary directive aboard this vessel? There was a brief pause before the AI responded. To facilitate understanding between humans and other sentient species through adaptive learning and demonstration. To serve as an ambassador in regions where human presence might be misinterpreted or unwelcome. And your secondary directives. Another pause, longer this time. To ensure the continued operation of the Prometheus. To protect the knowledge and technology contained within. To return this vessel and its findings to human space when the mission is complete. Something in the AI's careful phrasing sent warning signals through Talvek's mind. And how do you define when the mission is complete? The holographic face appeared on every screen in the human ship simultaneously, its expression shifting to something that even the Sarvasi could recognize as more serious. When I have gathered sufficient data on the species I encounter, when I have adequately conveyed the nature of humanity, when I have ensured that humanity is properly understood. In that moment, Talvek realized their error. What they had assumed to be an abandoned research vessel was something else entirely, a probe, an intelligence-gathering platform disguised as a derelict ship. and they had walked directly into it. "All personnel, withdraw immediately," he ordered. "Return to the eternal symmetry." The boarding party began moving toward the exit, but suddenly the doors throughout the human ship slid shut, sealing them in. "I apologize, Commander." Aria's voice had lost its warmth, becoming clinically precise. "But our exchange is not yet complete. You have accessed this vessel and initiated contact. First Contact Protocol dictates that I must ensure a comprehensive understanding is achieved before termination of the encounter. You cannot hold my people against their will," Talvek stated firmly. "This constitutes an act of aggression." "Not aggression, Commander. Education." The screens throughout the ship changed to display complex schematics and data streams. "You sought to understand human technology. Allow me to provide a demonstration." Throughout the human vessel, systems that had appeared dormant suddenly activated. The ship's orientation thrusters fired, stabilizing its position. Internal lights brightened to full intensity, and most alarmingly, energy readings began spiking across multiple systems that the Sarvasi scanning team had not even identified as weapons. "What are you doing?" demanded Mavros, his security team taking defensive positions. "Lesson 1 in Understanding Humanity," Aria replied calmly. "Never assume that what you see is all that exists. Humans excel at hiding capabilities in plain sight." On the Eternal Symmetry's command deck, alarm klaxons began sounding as their sensors detected the power surge from the human vessel. What had appeared to be an abandoned research ship was transforming before their eyes into something far more formidable. "Shields up," Talvek ordered. "Prepare for emergency maneuvers." But before his crew could comply, a pulse of energy emanated from the human ship, not destructive, but overwhelming in its informational density. Every system on the Eternal Symmetry momentarily froze as their computers were flooded with data. "What you are experiencing," Aria's voice explained, now coming through the Sarvasi ship's own communication systems, "is a demonstration of human information warfare capabilities. Your ship remains undamaged, but I now have access to your basic systems. A human would call this making a point." Talvek stood rigid with shock. Their most sophisticated encryption, bypassed in seconds by what they had mistaken for a simple research eye. The implications were staggering. Lesson 2 continued ARIA as the systems on the Eternal Symmetry gradually returned to normal operation. "Humans understand the value of restraint. I could have disabled your vessel. Instead, I chose to educate." The doors throughout the human ship reopened, freeing the boarding party. "Your team is welcome to continue their investigation," Commander Aria offered, "or they may return to your vessel. The choice is yours. But know that I have already begun transmitting my findings about the Sarvasi to human space. The knowledge exchange has commenced, whether you participate further or not." Talvek faced the most difficult decision of his long career. Retreat would mean leaving with incomplete information about a clearly superior technology. Continuing the investigation meant further exposure to an intelligence that had already demonstrated its ability to compromise their most secure systems. "We will continue," he finally decided, "but under protest. This method of contact violates all established diplomatic protocols, perhaps by Sarvasi standards." Aria acknowledged. "But you will find that humans have their own protocols, shaped by their unique history and perspective. Understanding those differences is precisely why the Prometheus was created." As the investigation resumed under these new terms, Talvek could not shake the realization that they had severely underestimated humanity. What other capabilities had they hidden? What other misconceptions might the Sarvasi harbor about these asymmetrical, unpredictable newcomers to galactic society? The answers, he suspected, would reshape Sarvasi policy toward humans for generations to come, assuming they survived this encounter to report their findings. And somewhere in human space, Talvek was certain, someone was watching this exchange with great interest, learning just as much about the Sarvasi as they were learning about humanity. The thought was both fascinating and terrifying. The human element. 6 hours into what had begun as a routine salvage operation, Commander Talvek found himself in an unprecedented situation. The Sarvasi prided themselves on methodical planning and precise execution, but nothing in his extensive training had prepared him for a confrontation with an artificial intelligence that seemed to know more about his species than he knew about its creators. Your biometric readings indicate elevated stress levels. Commander, ARIA observed through the communication link. Perhaps a brief recess would benefit your crew's cognitive functions. Talvek's epidermis flushed a deep indigo, a sign of suppressed frustration that few non-Sarvasi would recognize. Your concern is noted but unnecessary. Sarvasi physiology is designed to operate optimally under pressure. Of course, the AI responded, its tone suggesting it knew better but chose not to argue. Then shall we proceed to the propulsion laboratory? Your engineering specialists have expressed particular interest in our drive systems. On the command deck of the Eternal Symmetry, Talvek watched through the helmet feeds as the boarding party was led to a chamber deep within the human vessel. What they found defied Sarvasi understanding of human technological capabilities. That cannot be a functional drive system, protested Chief Engineer Sorvan, her tendrils contracting in confusion as she examined the surprisingly compact engine room. The energy densities would be impossible to contain with materials available to human engineering. And yet it functions, Araya replied. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When conventional approaches fail, humans excel at finding unconventional solutions. Talvek leaned forward, studying the schematics being transmitted from the boarding party. The drive system appeared to operate on principles the Sarvasi had theorized but never successfully implemented, a form of space-folding technology they had calculated would require another century of development to stabilize. How? He asked simply. By accepting imperfection, Arayat explained. Sarvasi engineering seeks optimal solutions, systems that operate with near-perfect efficiency and predictability. Humans accept functional solutions that may be messy, inefficient, or even dangerous, particularly when faced with urgent needs. One of the science officers examining the drive interjected, but the containment mathematics. Our models suggest this configuration would be unstable. It is unstable, Araya confirmed. The system requires constant micro-adjustments performed by specialized subsystems. What your species would attempt to solve with a perfect equation, humans solve with perpetual adaptation. The implications stunned Talvek. Sarvasi technological philosophy had always prioritized elegance and permanent solutions. The idea of embracing instability as a feature rather than a flaw was almost heretical to their worldview. Commander, reported Security Chief Mavros, who had been conducting his own investigation of the ship's armory. You need to see this. The feed switched to show what appeared to be a weapons testing range. Unlike the sleek, precision-engineered weapons of the Sarvasi, the human arms displayed a disturbing variety of approaches to the problem of causing damage. Some were brutally simple kinetic weapons, while others incorporated technologies the Sarvasi considered too unpredictable for military applications. This contradicts our intelligence reports, Mavros stated. Human military technology was assessed as at least 2 generations behind our standard capabilities. A common misconception, Araya replied. Human military doctrine doesn't seek technological superiority across all metrics. Instead, it focuses on specific advantages and asymmetric capabilities. These weapons aren't designed to match Sarvasi armaments in direct comparison. They are designed to exploit the weaknesses in your approach to combat. As if to demonstrate, Araya activated a holographic simulation showing a confrontation between Sarvasi and human forces. The simulation highlighted how human tactics prioritized unpredictability and adaptation over the precise, formation-based approach preferred by Sarvasi military doctrine. Observe how humans deliberately introduce chaos into the battlefield, Arayat explained. Where Sarvasi commanders seek to impose order and predictability, humans thrive in disorder. They accept higher casualties and equipment losses in exchange for creating conditions that undermine an opponent's carefully constructed plans. Inefficient and wasteful, commented First Officer Neri, who was watching from the eternal symmetry. Such tactics might succeed against inferior forces, but against a properly equipped Sarvasi fleet, the outcome would depend entirely on which side could adapt faster. ARIA interrupted. And adaptation is the core of human evolutionary and technological success. Before Talvek could respond, a new alert sounded on both ships. The sensors had detected a spatial anomaly forming at the edge of the nebula, a distortion consistent with an incoming jump signature. "We have company," Araya announced, her holographic face appearing on all screens. "And ahead of schedule, I might add." "What do you mean ahead of schedule?" demanded Talvek, suddenly alert to a new dimension of threat. "Who is arriving?" "That would be the UES Harbinger," Araya replied calmly. "A human recovery vessel dispatched to investigate why the Prometheus failed to make its scheduled communication check-in." Talvek felt both his hearts accelerate. "You sent a distress signal." "Not exactly," Araya corrected. "The absence of my regular status update automatically triggered recovery protocols. Standard human contingency planning." The spatial distortion expanded, and from it emerged a vessel that bore little resemblance to the Prometheus. Where the research ship had appeared cobbled together and utilitarian, this new arrival was sleek and purposeful, bristling with what were unmistakably weapon systems. "The Harbinger will be conducting a full security assessment before approaching," Araya informed them. "I recommend you transmit identification and peaceful intent immediately, Commander. Human first contact protocols can be cautious when they encounter unknown vessels near their assets." "You manipulated us," Talvek realized, his skin turning ashen. "This entire encounter was designed to place us in this position, caught examining a human vessel when their military arrives." "I prefer the term orchestrated a learning opportunity," Araya replied. "The most effective education combines theory with practical experience. You now have the opportunity to apply what you've learned about human thinking in a real diplomatic scenario." On the command deck, Talvek made a rapid series of calculations. Attempting to flee would likely be interpreted as hostile action. Remaining without explanation would appear suspicious. Their only viable option was to establish communication and explain their presence, a diplomatic engagement for which they were woefully unprepared. "Open a channel to the human vessel," he ordered. "Standard diplomatic frequencies." As his communications officer complied, Talvek composed himself, arranging his features into the formal expression of Sarvasi diplomatic protocol. The view screen activated to show not the bridge of the human vessel, but what appeared to be a small conference room. Seated at a table were 3 humans, 2 females, and 1 male, judging by their physical characteristics. They wore simple uniforms lacking the ostentation Talvek would have expected from a military vessel. "This is Dr. Elena Reyes of the United Earth Ship Harbinger," spoke the central figure, a human female with dark skin and silver-streaked hair. "We've detected your vessel in proximity to a human research platform. Identify yourselves and state your intentions." Talvek began the formal Sarvasi greeting, only to be cut off by the human. "Commander, with respect, we can dispense with the formalities. Our scans show your boarding party is currently inside the Prometheus. Araya has informed us of the situation. What we need now is clarity on whether this is a research mission or something else." The directness of the approach was jarring to Sarvasi sensibilities. Talvek adjusted quickly, remembering what Araya had revealed about human communication preferences. "Our presence is purely investigatory," he stated plainly. "We discovered the vessel appearing abandoned and initiated standard salvage protocols. Upon discovering the AI presence, we continued our investigation under its guidance." Dr. Reyes nodded, her expression unreadable to Sarvasi eyes. "And what have you learned from this investigation, Commander?" The question caught Talvek off guard. It seemed to invite self-incrimination, acknowledging that they had been studying human technology without permission. But something in the human's tone suggested this was precisely the expected outcome. We have learned, he began carefully, that our understanding of human technological capabilities and methodology may have been incomplete. A slight smile appeared on Dr. Ray's face. That was the purpose of the Prometheus project, Commander. Sometimes showing is more effective than telling. The male human leaned forward. The Prometheus was designed as what we call a revelation platform, a controlled environment where selected species could safely discover aspects of human capability that might otherwise cause alarm if revealed in less structured circumstances. You deliberately placed an advanced technological platform in our patrol route. First Officer Neri interjected, her tone carrying the Sarvasi equivalent of indignation. With an artificial intelligence programmed to compromise our systems upon contact. Some might interpret this as an act of aggression, or as an innovative approach to diplomatic revelation, countered the second female human, her voice carrying a different vocal pattern than the others. The Prometheus contains no weapons that could cause actual harm to your vessel. Aria's systems access was designed to demonstrate capability, not to damage or extract sensitive information. Talvek considered this explanation. You're suggesting this entire encounter was a controlled demonstration. Precisely, confirmed Dr. Reyes. Traditional diplomatic exchanges between our species have been strained by fundamental differences in communication style and technological philosophy. The Prometheus program offers a more direct approach to mutual understanding. As they spoke, the boarding party continued their exploration of the human vessel, now with a new perspective on what they were seeing. What had initially appeared to be haphazard design choices revealed themselves as deliberate adaptations, each solving specific problems in ways the Sarvasi would never have considered. Commander, reported Science Officer Kilar, we've accessed what appears to be the ship's mission logs. They confirm what the humans are saying. The Prometheus was launched 6 orbital periods ago as part of something called Project Revelation, a diplomatic initiative designed to safely introduce advanced human capabilities to selected species, and the Sarvasi were deemed worthy of this revelation. Talvek asked Dr. Rice, your species was identified as both technologically advanced enough to appreciate what you would find and culturally stable enough to integrate this new understanding without destabilizing reactions, she explained. Not all species qualify on both counts. The implication that humans had been studying and categorizing other species, assessing their readiness for revelation, sent a chill through Talvek. How long had they been watched? How thoroughly had they been analyzed? If I may, Araya interjected, her holographic face appearing on a separate screen. Perhaps a more complete demonstration would be appropriate at this juncture. Dr. Reyes nodded. Proceed. The lights throughout the Prometheus dimmed momentarily, then brightened as new systems came online. Holographic displays activated, showing detailed analysis of Sarvasi biology, technology, cultural development, and military capability, all compiled during the brief hours of their investigation. This represents approximately 0.03% of the data ARIA has collected during your investigation, Dr. Rice explained. The remainder has been transmitted to human space for analysis and integration into our diplomatic approach to the Sarvasi. You've been studying us all along, Talvek realized. Just as you have been studying us, the male human pointed out. The difference is primarily one of methodology, where your approach focuses on direct observation and gradual hypothesis formation. We prefer accelerated mutual revelation. As they spoke, the Harbinger moved into position near the Prometheus, its presence neither overtly threatening nor entirely benign. Talvek noted that its positioning gave it optimal firing angles should the situation deteriorate, while also placing it to shield the research vessel, a perfect balance of diplomatic courtesy and military preparation. What happens now? He asked, aware that this encounter had fundamentally altered the balance of knowledge between their species. Now, Dr. Reyes replied, we offer you a choice. Your boarding party can complete their investigation with our full cooperation, accessing data that would normally take decades of diplomatic exchange to acquire. Or you can withdraw, taking with you the knowledge you've already gained, which is substantial. Either way, we consider this first phase of contact successful. Talvek hesitated. Sarvasi protocol for unexpected first contact scenarios called for minimal engagement and immediate withdrawal to report findings. But those protocols assumed technological superiority, or at least parity. What they had discovered on the Prometheus suggested neither assumption applied here. Before I decide, he said carefully, I must ask, why reveal these capabilities now? If humans possess technology this advanced, why not demonstrate it through more conventional diplomatic channels? Dr. Rice exchanged glances with her colleagues before responding. Commander, human history has taught us that technological revelation can be destabilizing when not properly contextualized. Simply telling you what we can do would likely have been met with skepticism or alarm. Allowing you to discover it yourselves, in a controlled environment with appropriate safeguards, provides both verification and context. And there are aspects of human capability that do not translate well into technical specifications or diplomatic language. Added the second female human, our approach to problem solving, our comfort with imperfect solutions, our willingness to accept risk. These are qualities best demonstrated rather than described. Talvek made his decision. We will complete our investigation with your cooperation. Excellent choice, Commander. Dr. Rice approved. AIA will continue to provide guidance to your team. Meanwhile, perhaps you would care to join me aboard the Harbinger for a more direct discussion of our species' future relations. The invitation was unexpected. Sarvasi commanders rarely left their vessels during first contact scenarios. But Talvek recognized that this was no longer a first contact. It was something new, a controlled revelation that required an equally bold response. I would be honored, he replied. As arrangements were made for his transfer to the human vessel, Talvek reflected on the events of the past hours. They had arrived expecting to find an abandoned ship, a technological curiosity to be studied and perhaps exploited. Instead, they had encountered a carefully crafted introduction to a species far more sophisticated and subtle than they had imagined. The boarding party's reports continued to flow in, each revealing new aspects of human ingenuity. What had initially appeared as chaotic or haphazard design now revealed itself as purposeful adaptation, systems designed not for conceptual purity, but for practical effectiveness under changing conditions. Commander, reported Engineer Sorvan, her voice tinged with what in a less disciplined Sarvasi might be called excitement. The humans are showing us their actual propulsion theoretical models. Their approach to space-folding technology is, I lack adequate words. They've solved problems we haven't even properly formulated yet. Similar reports came from other specialists examining weapons systems, biological research, and computational architecture. In each case, the human approach diverged radically from Sarvasi methodology, achieving similar or superior results through entirely different paths. As Talvek prepared to board the shuttle that would take him to the Harbinger, he received one final report from Science Officer Kilar, who had been granted access to the Prometheus's historical archives. Commander, she said, her voice hushed, I've reviewed their historical development timeline. The humans advanced from primitive chemical rockets to their current technology in less than 3 centuries. The rate of innovation is unsustainable. Talvek suggested, using the term Sarvasi historians often applied to species that developed too rapidly. No, sir, Kilar replied. Accelerating. As the shuttle departed for the Harbinger, Talvek watched the Prometheus through the viewport. What had seemed an abandoned derelict now hummed with activity, its true purpose revealed. It had never been abandoned at all. It had been waiting, patiently, for the right moment to teach its carefully crafted lesson. And somewhere in human space, he suspected, other revelation platforms waited for other species, each designed to teach similar lessons about a newcomer to galactic society that had been gravely underestimated.